wife sat there fanning herself the whole time. It's so good to be up here, just to warm up. If you can turn up all the lights, I'm good. All of them, just for real. Like stand over here where it's all warm and toasty. Oh my goodness. Good morning, guys. It is good to see you guys. As we continue in our sermon series, of course, we're in this new section, perspective, as you see. And the idea is not to have our perspective take the view of the world, but to take the perspective of Jesus. And as we talked about last week, we're going to look at the perspective over the next 7 weeks. Perspective of Jesus on many topics, such as the church, mission, ministry, outreach, missions, and our lives in general. And today we're going to take a look at the church, Jesus' perspective on the church. And here's the deal. Just like I said last week, we all have our own perspective. In general, we all have our own perspective on the church. We do. We all have our idea of what the church should be like, or what we want it to be, I should say. And so when I say church, some of you think of Goshen Christian Church. Some of you, this is the only church that you've known. Others of you, you've just been here for so long that really this is your only kind of understanding or perspective of church. So when I say church, you're thinking, oh, GCC, yeah. Others, though, when I say church, you think of something entirely different, right? It's like a Monty Python thing. Now for something completely different. You think of maybe a small church out in the middle of a countryside somewhere, beautiful surroundings, white picket fence, steeple, stained glass windows. That's what you think of when I say church. Some of you are nodding. Yeah, see, I did a pretty good job. Others of you, maybe you're thinking mega church. Maybe not specifically that you attend, but maybe it's something that you're watching TV-wise. Some of you I know, in the next few months, we're going to get snow, or days. You never know here. I hope not. Now, I hope not. But there are going to be times when some of you aren't going to make it to church on Sunday morning just because the roads are bad, the weather is bad, and you're going to watch your second favorite preacher. Or, okay, maybe your first favorite. Anyways, you're going to watch somebody on TV. You're going to watch a church service on TV. And so when you think of church, that's what you think of. Maybe that was just growing up as well, too. It's just that constant, it's just, it's like kind of like oatmeal. It feels right. It's kind of like that thing. It just feels good. It's that good connection, although it's better here. It's just better here. But anyways, when I say church, you think of that. Others of you, maybe you think of something totally outside of the box. Maybe when I say church, you're thinking of a house. You're thinking of a home church, perhaps in China, where Christians are sneaking in under the cover of darkness so they can worship Jesus. Whatever the case may be, guys, we all have our own perspective on church. And Jesus, of course, has his as well. And it's very specific and it's very unique. And that's what we want to look at today. So our text is Matthew chapter 16. If you guys want to go ahead and turn there, we'll start in just a few moments. We really have a long ways to go today and a short time to get there, so I want to make sure I do my diligence to make sure we get all the information, but not sit here for an hour and a half. Although some of you have said, I could listen to you preach for an hour. Today might be that day. I hope not. But as you turn to the text, let me give you just a little bit of background, bring you up to speed to where we're at in the text, okay? Jesus essentially tells his disciples, guys, let's go for a walk. Let's just take a hike. I got some place I want to take you, and so they start walking. They go from Capernaum, where they're at, roughly, to Caesarea Philippi, which is the northern border of Israel. It's about a 25-mile distance, and they didn't have planes, trains, or automobiles, so they had to walk. And if you look at the average speed that a person walks, which I had to Google, which is 3.1, I don't know. Anyways, miles per hour, I guess, somewhere in there. But anyways, it ends up being about an 8-hour trip. Again, you know my math is bad. We don't talk about the book of Numbers. We just don't go there. 8 hours, roughly an 8-hour walk. Now, I imagine somebody, because look, I'm that kind of guy. We go on vacation, Shannon will tell you, there's like a mapped out agenda, right? We're going to relax according to the schedule, you know? So I'm not the kind of impromptu guy where Jesus says, hey, Ray, let's go for a walk. I'd be like, where are we going? Where are we going? And I imagine somebody's asking, where are we going? Especially after a couple hours. Man, are we there? Well, not even we're there yet. Where are we going? Are we there yet? Because you don't even know. So I suspect there's at least one guy in the group, kind of like me, who's wondering, what's going on? Where are we going? But they take their walk. They go all the way to Caesarea Philippi. Listen, there's a certain part of that area. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. You ever one of those countdown moments, right? Some of you know what I'm talking about. The younger ones are like, what is that? Right? Take me away, Calvin, take me away. This is like where you wanted to be I know, the younger people are like, what is he talking about? Old stuff. Just go to YouTube, type in old stuff. It'll probably pull up. I don't know. Anyways, it was picturesque. Mount Hermon was there. Listen, to snow-capped peaks. You could see the snow-capped peaks like 30 miles away on a clear day. Just absolutely beautiful area. The headwaters of the Jordan River flowed from the mountain itself. You've got, these beautiful noise of streams and rivers flowing, birds chirping, grass, greenery. I'm just saying, this is the place to be when you want to get away from it all. That's where you want to go. Picture perfect. But that's not where Jesus brought his disciples. He brought them a little further out of there to the actual city proper of Caesarea Philippi, overrun with pagan worship, sexual immorality, sexual perversion. Look, it was so bad. How bad was it? Okay, it was so bad that even as you're walking into the city on the stones, there was carvings. There were carvings, artwork-ish. Again, sexual stuff, perverted. It's like you walk with the kids, you're like, okay, hold it, cover their eyes. Walking through the city, not family-friendly, not G-rated, not a place where you want to go take a family trip. It wasn't. It was really like the most horrible, vile, despicable place you could go to. In fact, there are certain scholars who said that it compared to modern-day Las Vegas in this sense, that what happened there stayed there, but it was completely different in the sense that modern-day Las Vegas looks tame compared to what was going on in Caesarea Philippi. So take that for whatever you want to take that. Just know that it wasn't a nice, warm, fuzzy place to take the kids. And this is where Jesus takes them. And he's essentially standing at a part of the city where he's literally standing on a rock. I love this because it's going to fit with the text as we get there. And I believe Jesus always, as a visual teacher, always, honestly, I don't know for a fact, but I really believe that. He's talking about the lost sheep. You point to a sheep. People know what sheep are, so there's no disconnect. But to visually see it, I think just adds that extra impact. Kind of visual people, right? So he's standing on a rock, and behind, or I should say to the side of him somewhere, because I don't know where he was standing, I wasn't there, but there's a cave. Okay, and this cave, it's like one of these big mouth, wide mouth caves. It's just this huge cave. Sorry, teachers in the room, didn't mean to say that. It's this huge cave. It's actually because of superstition in the Caesarea Philippi area. They believed that this was, they actually named Gate of Hades, which we're going to get to there in the text. Kind of interesting. They named it that. They actually believed, superstition-wise, that it was the portal to the underworld. That the dead could just come walking out of it at any old given time. They could just come walking out, and if you walked far enough in there, you would reach the realm of the dead as well. So kind of, again, it just has a creep factor of like 11, right? Like this one goes to 10, this one goes to 11. It's totally creep factor. You didn't want to be there. It wasn't the nice place to be. This is the place, guys, and Jesus takes his disciples, and he says, all right, let's talk about church. So that's the setting, okay? That's the backdrop. Not nice, no-cap mountains, but creepy place with all the pagan worship, all the idol worship, everything going on, okay? That's where he takes the disciples. So now you have that perspective in your minds. Let's jump into the text. Okay, so Matthew 16, we're going to start reading in verse 13. Starts off with this. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" Okay, so just pause there for a moment. Jesus he doesn't need to ask them because he doesn't know. And it may sound like just even a silly statement for me to make, but there are Christian authors, I don't know how to say, authors who claim to be Christian, who have written books that say that Jesus was going through an identity crisis. And some, I can kind of understand a little bit of their logic. I don't believe it, but I can understand some of their logic. His popularity was definitely in decline. He moved out from from a Jewish area to a Gentile area to kind of retreat. I can kind of see what they're getting at, how they're getting there, but I believe it's garbage. Honestly, Jesus is not having an identity crisis at this moment. He's not taking his disciples 8 hours away to ask him, "Hey, who do people say I am?" Because he doesn't know. See, he knows. He has ears. He can hear the buzz that's going around. Plus, listen, guys, he knows what's in the heart. How many times is he in a room or in a group setting where somebody is thinking something in their heart and he calls them out on it? So he knows. He doesn't have to ask them because he wants to decide, gee, I need to know because, I'm going to reveal myself as the Messiah, and it's important that I understand how people see me so I can do this. That's not the case at all. You're going to see that this is all about a test for his disciples, and it's leading up to the bigger question, and the bigger question is coming. But he says, all right, so guys, who do people say I am? And then they respond. They replied, I don't know who they are, but they, in verse 14, they replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Okay, so those are all wrong. We know they're all wrong. The disciples know that those answers are all wrong. Jesus knows the answers are all wrong. Okay, he's not Elijah or John the Baptist or Jeremiah or any other prophet risen from the dead, come back. Let me actually touch on that for a second. The Jews didn't believe in reincarnation. So they're not literally thinking that somebody rose from the dead and came back. They did believe that the spirit of somebody could empower someone. And that's kind of what they're talking about. And so all the answers they give, of course, are the wrong answers. Jesus doesn't believe it. The disciples don't believe it. They're just throwing it out there. Some say that you could be these things, right? So just kind of a mixed bag of answers. But then Jesus asked the big question. And this is the real question he's trying to get to, verse 15. What about you, he asked. Who do you say I am? And that's really it. The answer there is, that's where the rubber meets the road. Listen, Jesus is going to ask you this question. It's a question you're going to have to answer. There's going to be a time when he's going to stand face to face and look you square in the eyes and ask you, who do you say I am? Now I don't know that I would say that would be literal for us. I would say more of a spiritual sense, perhaps during quiet time. You just have a moment of quiet time, and as you're sitting there, the question just kind of pops up, and there it is. And he's asking, who do you say I am? It's an important question, obviously the most important question. Remember, some of you remember way back, I can say way back because it feels good now, way back in January, when I didn't even start. It was a trial sermon. It was like it was like coming in and being like, okay, let's see if I can hit one to first base and get out. It's just like trying to do my best to give you guys a trial sermon of who I am and what I'm about. And the sermon I preached was the 3 views of Jesus from the book of Revelation. And the title of the sermon was, Who is Jesus? And I said then, and I'm saying now, that is the most important question we will ever have to answer in our lives. Who is Jesus? Essentially, that's what he's asking the disciples. Who am I? Who do you say I am? And so we're going to have to come face to face with that. And again, it might be quiet time. Maybe sometime is when you're studying. I love it because I'll study through my Bible reading, and then reading turns into study. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. I just want to read. I just want to be filled. I just want to move on. I don't want to have like 7 extra sermons that I'm starting to write at the moment. But reading and studying, and it turns into those moments where you're really hit, you're really convicted with who do you say I am? And sometimes it's just a reflection of who I am. I'm a pretty decent Ray, which is bad, because I'm not always a good Jesus. And it's at that moment like that where it'll hit me, who do you say I am? And then I'm have to take a step back. And sometimes it's just just in a spiritual sense or emotional, I have to take a step back and I really have to evaluate what I'm doing and who I am at that particular moment and see the distance between myself and Jesus. So sometimes it's in those moments. Sometimes it's during worship. Whether here in the building or elsewhere. Because listen, everything we do should be about worship, guys. Worship doesn't just mean singing. It's everything we do. So maybe there's a time during worship when, bang, it just hits you. And you're hit with that question, who do you say I am? You're going to have to answer it. You have to be prepared for that. For yourself and for the world around you as well. Okay? So Jesus hits him with the biggest question he could possibly ask him, the most important question they're ever going to have to answer, and us as well. Who do you say I am? And he's asking the group. I don't know that he's doing this. So, who do you say I am? I don't think he's doing that because Peter is the guy who he gives the answer, but he's asking the group in general, okay? But verse 16, Simon Peter answered. He said, you are the Messiah, as the Christ, the anointed one, the Son of the living God. Okay, 12 guys standing there, and Peter gives the answer. I don't know how this all went down. I'd love to see this. I don't know if it was kind of... You got to love this guy, Peter. I love this guy. Seriously, he's excited. He's very passionate. He's very zealous about Jesus. He loves to do anything for Jesus and to spread the word and share the word. He's the guy who just wants to run out and do everything 100%, 100 miles per hour, right? Maybe doesn't have all the information, right? He kind of puts his foot in his mouth sometimes, but he's the guy that you got to love his passion. You got to love his zeal. And I don't know how this worked. I don't know if this was kind of like, oh, pick me, right? Like he's saying, I know. I don't know if it was like that or if it was just kind of like, here's Peter. Like Jesus asked the question, he's like, I know the answer. I don't know if it was like that. I think it was more like the first one. He was like, oh, and he just jumps in. Right? You have the conversation like you talk to somebody and before you even finish the question, there's enough of a question that somebody knows and they just blurt out the answer. I kind of think that's what Peter did. I love the guy, seriously. You are the Messiah. You're the Christ, the anointed one. You are the Son of God, Son of the living God. Not just a God or God, but the living God. That was a big deal because all the other gods there were dead. Little g, by the way. And so that was a big deal. And I love it because he gives the right answer and Jesus praises him for it. You got it. Spot on. That's exactly what he was looking for. I think that was the big test of the day. Again, taking them 8 hours away, why? I don't know, but there's always a reason for what Jesus does, and I can't tell you all that because I just don't know. There'll be a day when we'll find out and we'll know and we'll say, aha. Or will we say, aha? Sorry, aha. Anyways, okay. It was a Jewish thing, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to connect with our roots of Christianity anyways. Alright guys, so Peter answers. Gives him the answer he's looking for. Of course it's the right answer. Verse 17, Jesus replies, Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. In verse 20 he says this, Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone he was the Messiah. Sounds kind of odd, doesn't it? But he's saying, here's the deal. I don't want you. You gave me the right answer, and it's a perfect answer, but just don't go blabbing that to everybody right now. There's a time and a place. Let's just set that off to the side, okay? Because there's going to be a time when I'm going to have you go out into all the world and make disciples of all nations, all of them. Gentiles, every single person, all inclusive, and you're going to baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and you're going to have to teach them everything I've commanded you. That day is coming. That day will be here, but not today. There's going to be a day when you're going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth, and you're going to have to proclaim that I am the Messiah, I'm the Christ, I am the one that God sent. But not today. Today, let's just keep it quiet. And he's wanting to focus on their training. He wants to make sure that he gets them properly trained so they can go out and do these things. And he gives the right answer, of course, and Jesus commends him for it. I love it. Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. Some of your translations say son of Bar Jonah. Talking in Aramaic. It's important to put that in your back pocket for a second. He's just praising him for this. And I love what he says next. What I get from this is kind of cool. It wasn't revealed to you by flesh and blood. It was revealed to you by my Father in heaven. I kind of love that because, listen, guys, knowledge can only take us just so far. Really? There's good in this. Really, make sure you don't just read this. Make sure you are studying His Word, okay? Because knowledge is good to have. We need to have a knowledge of Jesus, who He is, who He was, who He is to us, okay? That's very important. But knowledge only takes us so far because we really cross the finish line by faith. And he's saying, this wasn't really revealed to you by flesh and blood. Right? This was something my Father did. I love it. I think the more in tune we get with the Spirit, the more He speaks, the more we are open to listen, the more we hear, and the more we have those moments where it's not revealed to us by our study, but there's some fruit to that study, and God blesses us. And he says, verse 18, it's been under debate for a long time. It still is. You are Peter, which means rock. That means a little rock, like a pebble. He says, "You are Peter, rock, and upon this rock I will build my church." And so we have some Catholic friends that believe that what they're saying, that Jesus is appointing Peter as the first pope. And he's giving him all authority. I don't believe that. Scripture just doesn't support it. I'm not sure where they're getting it 100%, but I want to bash on anybody because, listen, I don't have a proper understanding of everything in this book either. Right? We live by faith, not by sight. So to some things we just have to take by faith. But it doesn't make sense because even if you go through the book of Acts, there are a couple interactions that Peter has with a couple other individuals, and there's some things that are said, and there's some decisions that are made, and it wasn't Peter saying, I'm putting my foot down. My mama don't. He didn't say that. He wasn't saying, I have all authority, Jesus gave it to me, so we're going to do what I say. He wasn't saying those things because that wasn't Peter. Not in those moments. He progressed. You look at him in the Gospels and you look at him in the books that he wrote, such a major gap there of just spiritual maturity and growth in Christ Jesus, guys. But he's not standing there putting his foot down and saying, no, I have all authority. Because he wouldn't have to. Because everybody else would just say, well, no, Jesus gave him the authority. He's the rock. We're going to build upon that, and there we go. So I don't believe that. So, and others would argue, even the Greek words, it's a little rock, it's a big rock, right? Upon this rock, which is like a boulder. But listen, I really believe Jesus was speaking in Aramaic, which is why I said put that in your back pocket. Son of Jonah or Bar Jonah. There isn't really a distinguishing word there between a large rock and a small rock. So I think it's just, it's an argument, but I would say not a very strong one, okay? Here's what I believe. And many scholars, I'm not a scholar, but many scholars, and then me, believe Jesus is talking it a little bit differently. He's saying that you are Peter, and upon this rock, he's just giving him a new name. We've already talked about that before anyway. But upon this rock, what is the rock? The rock is the statement. The rock is the confession. Upon this rock, this confession that I am the Christ, the Son of the living God, upon this I will build my church. And that makes sense to me, because we see that throughout the entirety of Scripture. We see it here in the church, literally. You come forward to receive Christ, and you don't know Him, and that invitation is given, you come forward and you're like, yes, I've heard about Jesus, I'm ready, I have some faith, I want to be baptized, I'm ready to do this, yes, 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 yes. Okay, repeat after me, the good confession. And then I have them repeat. I believe Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. And when you come forward, we've had 4 so far come forward for recommitting, rededicating their life to Christ. Same thing. Repeat after me. I believe Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. So they repeat that. So we have that right here as our foundation. Plus, guys, listen. If the foundation of the church is not that Jesus is the Messiah and the Son of the living God, then I don't know what the foundation could be. Because we build upon everything, and if that is a domino standing here that is fake and false and phony, once it falls, everything else we believe in falls as well. So I see that as definitely Jesus could build His church upon that. So that's how I see that. But there's another view, and I'll throw that out there maybe a little bit later as we go. But I want to give you 4 takeaways before we go too much further from the message. First and foremost, we are a work in progress. The church itself is a work in progress. It really is. I want to give you from 2 perspectives. There we go. Cool. Organizationally and then individually. Now remember, the church is not the building, okay? I do love our building, so let me just say that. I do absolutely love the building that we have. I love that we are in buildings. I would be the last guy. Now yesterday we could go outside and have a service. Yesterday it was beautiful. We could stand under the tree. I'd be totally happy. Super happy guy. Totally. Today, not so much. It's a little cool over the next couple of weeks and months. It's going to get colder. It's going to be miserable. We don't want to stand outside under a tree and have a service. So I'm grateful that we have a building. I am very thankful that we have a building. But church, guys, is so much more. It's beyond the brick and mortar. It's more than 2x4s and drywall. It's about us, the people. It's about us. So from an organizational perspective, let me just say this. Church is a work in progress. That is, here in 2019, we can't do the same things that we did as a church back in, say, 1930 or 1960 or 1970. Some of them, and don't hear me wrong, the Bible, we're always going to preach it. always going to go right here. We're never going to stray. We're never going to water it down. We're never going to sugarcoat it. As long as I'm here and I have breath in me, that's never going to happen, ever. So we're never going to compromise on that. Absolutely, ever, 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 ever. But what I'm saying is that as the church, we kind of have to meet our culture to a certain point. We have to be remotely relevant to our culture. We have to be appealing and attractive to our culture. Again, this is kind of it's a fine line. It's kind of a juggle. It's a little bit difficult, but we can't do what we did, 30 years ago even. Back in the 80s, there's just, the culture is different. The mindset is different. The perspective is different. So we have to consistently be keeping up with the times, so to speak, but not compromising. And it's difficult. So we're always a work in progress. Organizationally, absolutely a work in progress. But guys, individually, we are the church. And we are a work in progress. I can tell you, I am for sure. Like I said, I'm a pretty good Ray sometimes. Sometimes I'm pretty awesome Ray, which is bad. That's bad to say. Sometimes I'm a pretty decent Jesus, and other times I'm just a terrible Jesus. I am. I'm a work in progress. All of us, we're all a work in progress. I love what Peter says. The guy who sticks his foot in his mouth a lot. But in 1 Peter chapter 2, he says, we are living stones being built into a spiritual house. And that's what it's all about, guys. We're this spiritual house, and we're being built. That means we're in progress. It's a work in progress. It's not built and done. Jesus didn't say, I've saved you and you're perfect. Don't move. Oh, right there. Awesome. He didn't say that. He didn't say, okay, I got the church going, don't, a little to the left. Yeah, don't touch it, right? He didn't do that. He didn't say any of that. We're a work in progress. There's progress, some of us more than others. And there's that work that consistently happens. If you are a follower of Jesus, I mean a true sold-out follower of Jesus, you are a work in progress. Because every moment of your day, every breath that you take, your goal is to strive closer, to know Him better, to know Him more, to exemplify Him more, to love Him more, to serve Him more, to follow Him more. And so it's a work in progress. It is. So just keep that in mind. The church is a work in progress. Second, this one's a biggie. The church belongs to Jesus. I don't know how to emphasize this one enough, but I'm going to try. The church does not belong to me. It doesn't. I've heard people say, well, I might come and check out your church. And I know what they're saying, and I don't beat them up over that, but listen, it's not my church. It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to any other preacher, pastor, minister, whatever you want to call them. It doesn't. Never has. It never will. Hopefully it never will. But it never will. It's not supposed to. It is not our church. It's not my church. This church, I love our elders. I've said that multiple times. I'll continue to say that. I love those guys. But it's not their church. It's not. It doesn't belong to them. It doesn't belong to any of the deacons or any of the other leaders. It doesn't belong to them. Guys, it just doesn't. And newsflash, it doesn't belong to you guys either. It's not your church. Now let me break this down a little bit. It's okay to say, I love my church, or come to my church, or we want, our church. It's okay to say those things, but when you cross the line of ownership, that's where it's bad. As long as there's no ownership. Because ownership is Jesus. It's His, 100%, wholeheartedly. So let me go back, because I like to do this as well too. I have to talk about ownership. I've said, yes, get involved, start serving, get into ministry, and take some ownership. What I'm talking about is ownership in the ministry. Ownership in that ministry that Jesus has given us. I'm not talking about ownership in the church, because it doesn't belong to us. Listen, none of you guys, no one in here died on a cross. None of you. I didn't either. No one shed their blood for the church. Nobody did, but Jesus did. So we have to know that it's His church. We have to understand, we have to live it. Guys, we have to believe it and live it, because when we do, and we push forward, it makes all the difference in the world. Okay? Because we're a work in progress. And we're His work in progress. Okay? Third, I love this one. The church is stronger than you think. I guess I should just look on the screen. I got it on the screen. The church is stronger than you think. Guys, I think this is where we really need to step it up. As Christians, we need to be serious in so many more ways. We just need to be more bold, more, I don't want to say aggressive, because that's kind of, it might get a bad connotation, but we need to be more direct, I guess, in our Christianity. Again, not beating somebody on the head with the Bible and be like, how Jesus loves you, get up! not like that, but sharing our faith with others. Listen, I know that some of you would look at the mainstream church, we'll just talk America, okay? Mainstream church in the United States, and you can say, I'm freaked out. It's losing the battle, it really is. It's declining, it's bad. Before long, the church is going to be non-existent. We don't have our reach like we used to. We don't have the power that we used to. We don't have the influence that we used to. And I can say, yeah, sure, I see those things. I do see those things happening. For sure. The mainstream church in America is struggling to bring new people in, and they're struggling to keep the ones they have. But there's a list of reasons why, guys. For example, the mainstream church in America, by and large, is struggling with several issues. There are anger issues in the church. There's pride. There's poor leadership. There's backbiting. There's gossip. There's slander. There's selfishness. There's so many worldly things going on in the church that, well, of course we're struggling. You know why? Because we're not looking at it as His church. It's our church. We start fussing over little things. We want this thing over here has to be exact. If it's not exact, well, then I can't worship. Well, that's a big problem, because that little thing is not your problem. Trust me, you have bigger issues if that's the thing that keeps you from worshiping Jesus. And so by and large, the church in America is going through this, and I think it's because our culture is pretty heavy right now on entitlement. I deserve this. I'm entitled to this, and I think that's and I don't want to trash talk anybody. Again, not even people groups, okay? But I think that's a big issue, and that's a big reason why the church is struggling, because I think we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're not doing our job. We might make a disciple and we might baptize them, but then we're not really just teaching them everything Jesus commanded. We're not doing it properly. We're not doing it succinctly. Maybe a little bit, but not all the way through. So we got to step it up in some ways, guys. Because we're a work in progress? Yeah. But we share that with others. I'm a work in progress. So are you. Good news. We can do this together. Okay? The church is stronger than you think. Keep that in mind, okay? And then finally, the church thrives. I'm going to read it this time. In the most difficult times and places. I think there was a reason why Jesus didn't go to the snow-capped peaks and the rivers flowing and the birds chirping and the smell of fresh cut grass. Okay, maybe not, but I think there's a reason why He didn't go to the picturesque place and say, let's talk about church. He went over here to the worst, perhaps the worst place on the planet at that time, and said, hey guys, take a look around. Let's talk about church. He wants them to understand that it's not about where you place the church, because we are the church, and the church will thrive. And if you look at some of the third world countries that go through, listen, there are missionaries that go through things that we will never experience in our lives here in America. We just never will. There are people being persecuted for their faith that we will never, ever experience. We'll probably never even understand or fathom what some people go through. But you know what happens as a result? People rally around them, and the church grows. You know why? Because I believe what Jesus said, that the gates of Hades will not even overcome it. That is, okay, so Hades, don't get hung up on it. Hades literally just means a place of the dead. I know some translations say the gates of hell. Okay, I won't argue too much with you. If you look at Jesus talking about the rich man and Lazarus, they both died. They both went to Hades. There was a good side, and there was a not so good side. And there was this big gap in between them. So it's death, really, just the place of death, okay? So He's saying nothing. Listen, what's worse than death? I mean, honestly. He's talking to a Jewish crowd, and death was it. I mean, that was like the ultimate. It is still the great equalizer today, right? Young, poor, rich, old, it doesn't matter. It takes anybody and everybody. But honestly, maybe other taxes might be worse than death. But still, we have to pay those and then we die. So it's like death. It's just, you can't escape it. You'll never, listen, unless Jesus returns in our lifetime, we will never escape it. Everyone in this room, I don't care how young or old you are, we're going to touch death. We all know it already because all of us have been touched by it. Family members, friends, co-workers, neighbors, you name it. We already understand what it's all about. But Jesus makes the boldest claim. Listen, athletes, my favorite season of the year is here, football season. Yeah, and I watched some college football yesterday, and I did rest, Bill. I did. I got some rest until Michigan was losing. I wasn't resting so much, and they barely squeaked it out. I don't want to talk about it, but Yeah, go blue, sure. But, guys, honestly, look, there's so much to this. There's so much to the text even that I want to talk about, that I want to get to. But we just need to get it. I don't think we get it. I know I'm kind of going off into a rabbit trail here, but I just think sometimes, guys, we talk about church, but I just don't know if we get it. I think when we think about church, we think about social gathering, which it is. We think of fellowship, which it is. We think of communion and our offering, and it is. And we think of our music and our songs, and it is. But guys, there's so much more. There's so much more. The church will thrive in all conditions, in all situations. You know why? Because Jesus said it will. He said that death won't overcome it. That means there's nothing worse than death. So there's nothing out there. Death is not going to overcome it. It doesn't matter what it is. Jesus doesn't care. He said, it's not going to overcome my church. I love that. Listen, there's a bunch that's said after that. Let me just bounce across it as quickly as possible, or we will be here till tomorrow. Jesus goes on to say, I give you the keys to the kingdom. Give him those keys to Peter. I don't believe it's a literal set of keys, like, here you go, man. Gas it up. It's not like that. I really believe the keys that he's giving Peter, it's the gospel. It's the gospel message. If you look at Peter in the book of Acts, he's the first guy to preach the very first sermon after Jesus ascends to heaven. They've been hit by the Holy Spirit, and they're ready to go. And Peter starts preaching. What else could... the doors were wide open. Peter, through the book of Acts, goes out and he preaches to Gentiles. All inclusion, all people, not just Jews now, it's every single person on the planet. Tell me that that's not the doors are burst wide open for people to come in. And that's not the keys to the kingdom, guys. I don't know what is. And then he says, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, there's so much there. We can't get into all of it, but let me just say this. It comes down to, and hopefully I can unpack this enough for you, it comes down to bringing heaven to earth. And then what I mean by that is God's will bringing to earth. He even taught his disciples, hey, pray in this way. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Like, it's about connecting the heart of God to the heart of man. And guys, we do that through the church. That's our role. It's something cool that we get to do. Listen, God's kingdom is all about restoring brokenness. That's why the church is here. God's kingdom is all about healing broken hearts. Guys, that's why we're here. God's kingdom is all about extending grace, perhaps to those who deserve it the least. And that's why the church is here. God's kingdom is all about forgiveness and offering forgiveness to those who need it the most. Guys, that's why the church is here. Listen, I love the church. I do. Because it's us. And we have a mission. We have a part in this. Here's the deal. God didn't need us. At any time, he could have just said, redeemed. Like how he did that? 3 people woke up. Redeemed. He could have just said that. And everybody, just every person forever would just be completely redeemed. We don't need Jesus in the mix. We don't need the church in the mix. We don't need any of that. Just, you're good to go. If you're born 70 years from now, you're still good to go. It just covers everything. He didn't do that, though. He didn't do that. He said, I want to use you, and I want you to be in the mix because I want you to touch the lives of others around you. I want you to bring my will, my heart, my grace, love, and mercy, and I want you to share that with others. We're a part of something. Guys, we're a part of the greatest thing that we could possibly be a part of. It's part of the church. I get excited about it, and I can tell some of you are really excited. I can tell. You're like, yo. Okay, I'm sorry. Nobody's doing that. I'm going to pick on you guys. But guys, I get excited about the church. It is the most amazing place. It's a place, and I can't even define it really because it's not a place like on a map. But spiritually, guys, we're the spiritual house, the spiritual stones. I love it that God chose us to do this, to be a part of his ministry of reconciliation. I can't think of a better anything. You want to know what your purpose is in life? I know people are like, I still don't know what my purpose is in life. Why am I here? You're here because you are a living stone. And because God chose you to be a part of the church and to go share with others. And where you're broken, you can share your brokenness and bring healing and restoration. And when you're depressed, you can share that depression with others who are depressed. And you can come together. And there's healing in that. Guys, we're the church. It's the most amazing place to be. And it's a blessing. It is. It's a privilege. There's work to be done. But it is a blessing. And it is a privilege. Church, don't give it up. Don't give it up. And don't miss out. Guys, no matter what. No matter what. There's only cut to the chase there. Alright? This is the part we all love. If you're here this morning,